This is a modified version of Gentle Somatic Yoga's Celtic cross sequence, one that involves movement of the hip as well as of the shoulder in order to create more cooperation and integration between the upper and lower bodies. So we'll begin by lying on our backs. So lying with legs extended and arms out to the side. Let's take a moment to give the full weight of your body to the floor and to scan your body and just notice how your shoulders are, how your hips are, how they're placed on the floor, whether there are obvious differences between the right and left sides of the body. And then let's take 3 deep cleansing breaths. So in through the nostrils and out through the mouth. And then let's set an intention to release tension from hips, from shoulders, to encourage them to move optimally and healthily. And then we'll roll off to the side, so you can gather your knees in towards the chest, roll off to the side, come to all fours on your mat to do a pre-check in dog pose. So dog pose obviously tends to focus on hamstring length and flexibility in the back, but it also requires good movement in the hips and the shoulders in order to find it satisfying. So just lift your knees, lift your hips, come up high in your dog, spreading your fingers and your toes, and just see how your shoulders are. So how is it as you work your chest just very gently a little closer to your thighs, for example, and how is it if you bend your knees and lift your tail a little higher to the sky? See how your hips feel. So you're tuning into your hips and your shoulders. We're using this as our pre-check. And we're going to come down onto the knees and onto the right side of the body. And lie on your right side. And you can use the outer edge of your mat as a guide for your legs, so you can have your knees and your heels in line with the outer edge of the mat. You'll probably want a block or a cushion underneath your head to support your neck. And you're going to lower your right shoulder down onto the floor, so hopefully the shoulder's in line with the hip. You've got your right arm out to the side, so just extended out in front of you, and your left hand is on the floor with the fingertips pointing up towards the top of your mat, if that's comfortable for your wrist. So you just take a moment to settle here. So the bones heavy, sinking down. And then very slowly and gently, let's move the right shoulder forwards. So a little roll of the right shoulder forward, and the head might roll a little bit there. And then slowly and gently return the shoulder to neutral, to your starting point. And then do it again. See if you can go even more slowly. Shift of the shoulder forwards. Everything else in the body relaxed. And then return yourself to neutral. And then we take a moment to relax, to let go. And then start to move that right shoulder backwards. It's going to roll a little onto the back of your head. And then return to neutral really slowly. Again, let's move that right shoulder backwards. And return. You take a pause and you relax, let go. Maybe take a cleansing breath. And equally slowly now, let's move the shoulder up towards the ear. So just the shoulder moving, so your top shoulder moving. And then slowly back to neutral, to its starting point. And let's take that again, so the shoulder moves up, and you might notice, as I am, that there's a little bit of stuttering in the muscles as they find this movement, returning to neutral. So that's sensory motor amnesia. That's places where the muscles have forgotten how to move optimally. Let's push the shoulder downwards now, so away from the ear. And these slow, smooth movements, and these tense release actions of the muscle, and we return back to neutral, just help to wake the muscles back up again. So to erase that sensory motor amnesia. So let's do it again. So you're pushing the shoulder down. And then you return to neutral. So there's a moment of release, of letting go. Really important just to relax in between these movements. And then let's thread these 4 movements together into a slow circle. So you'll move your shoulder forward, left shoulder forward, then slowly take it down, and then slowly roll it backwards, and then slowly draw it upwards. So we'll do one more rotation in this direction. So noticing what's happening to your underneath shoulder as well as your top shoulder, the shoulder that's leading the movement. We've completed that second rotation. Let's go in reverse. So you'll roll the shoulder forwards and then upwards, and slowly backwards and downwards, and just see how slow you can go. The slower the better, because that enables the mind to connect with the body in fresh, new ways. So you're not on autopilot when you move slowly. So I'm going for 2 rotations in this direction. Okay, and then just be still and let go all muscular effort and completely relax, and just be with the sensations in your shoulder. And then let's take those same movements into the hip. So top hip starts to move forward. So your left knee just slides off your right knee a little bit, and then it returns to neutral. So take care not to pull it too far back. So let your knees be your reference there. And then you're gently pushing the hip forward again and returning it to neutral and taking a pause. And then let's shift the hip backwards. So the left knee draws back from the right knee, the thighs stay together, and then you're returning to neutral again, not too far forward, and then you pull the hip back and looking out for those stuttery places, and then returning to neutral. And then let's try drawing the left hip towards the left shoulder, which might feel a bit awkward. So a way to find that is to press your right rib cage and your right waist down into the floor, and that should shorten the top side of your body. It lengthens the underside. And then you return again to neutral. Don't swing it too much the other way. And take it again. So press your right ribs and your right side waist down into the floor. And then release it. And then let's try moving the hip away from the shoulder. So this is going to be a shortening now of your underside. So it's like your right waist lifts from the floor, and then you return to neutral. So make sure you're not twisting or rolling forward. It's just the hip moving downwards. Let's take that again. So as you lift the the right ribs and the right waist from the floor, you'll feel your top side lengthening and then releasing. And let's thread them together as a circle. So we roll forward and then let's push the hip downwards. Make sure you do go down, not just back, and then you're rolling backwards and then you're pulling the hip upwards. So you might find it a bit trickier to engage this movement through your hip than you did through your shoulder. So then nice and slowly. So let's go for about 2 repetitions in each direction. So we're changing direction now. So hip goes forward and then up and then back and then down. Again, just watch for those jerky places. And then be still. Let's just rest the left arm alongside the top of the body there and take a cleansing breath and just let it all go. So quite lively sensations in hips and shoulders. So replace your left hand back down on the floor, do the hip and the shoulder together. So we'll just do one movement of each. So you're going to roll the shoulder and the hip forward. So you might even roll onto the center of your forehead there. And then you're going to come back to neutral and pause. And then roll the hip and the shoulder backwards. So you're rolling more towards the back of your head. You might look up towards the ceiling. And then come back to neutral. So do find neutral and pause. And then the hip and the shoulder go up towards the ear. So it's quite a strong contraction of the top side of the body. And then you return to neutral and pause. And then the hip and the shoulder go down. So that's quite a lengthening of the underside of the body. And then you pause. And then let's try a rotation. She'll just do one in each direction. So you're coming forwards and then down with both the hip and the shoulder, and then back and then up. So you return to forward and then change direction. Shoulder goes up and back and down. You're moving the hip as well and forward. And then you just return to neutral. Arm alongside the body. Take a breath. Just roll onto your back for a moment. Check in, see how you're doing. Right and left sides of the body probably feeling pretty different at the moment. So you're giving good attention to that. Then you're going to roll yourself off to the other side. So you can just simply roll. I'm going to spin round to the other end of my mat so I can look at you. So you're lying on the left side of the body now. Again, with your knees and your heels pretty much in line with the outer edge of your mat. You've got your support for your head. You rest your left shoulder down on the floor, the left arm's out in front of you. And the right palm is facing upwards. Yeah, so hopefully your shoulder and your hip are in line. So just take a moment to notice how it is to be here. So just this in itself probably feels quite different. And then taking the movement of just the shoulder. So top shoulder, right shoulder is going to start to move forward. And then it returns to neutral. Try not to put it too far back, just come back to neutral. And again, the shoulder goes forward. And comes back to neutral. And you take a pause and you relax. And then you're gently drawing the shoulder backwards. So it's a small and a subtle movement. Not much going on really. You're back to center and noticing what's happening through that underneath shoulder as well. not just the one that's leading. Let's draw the shoulder back again and to center. So then shoulder towards the ear. As slowly as you can go. The slowness is more important than the range of movement. And then you're back to center. And then gently pushing the shoulder up. And coming back. And then you're pushing the shoulder downwards. So that actually feels quite satisfying for me as I'm tight in this shoulder. And then return. And slowly, slowly pushing the shoulder downwards so you're lengthening through that top side of your neck. And then releasing. You're completely relaxing in these moments in between. And then let's thread them together into a circle. So 2 circles in each direction, so shoulder rolls forward. Let's go downward with the shoulder, and then backwards, and then upwards, and again forwards, and down. So do make sure you find each of the 4 points, and back, and then up. You can go forward, take a little pause and change direction, go up, and back, and down, and forwards, and up, and back, and down, and forward. And then just relax. You might bring your arm, your right arm onto the top side of the body and take a cleansing breath here. It's tuning into your sensations. And hand back down on the floor. Let's move the hip. So you're using your knees as a guide. You're going to slowly move your top hip forward. So the right knee is just sliding off the top of the left knee, and then you pull the hip back to find neutral. So don't overwork it in the back. Obviously your back is going to be engaged here, but lead it from your hip. So the hip pushes forward and then slowly returns to neutral, and you rest. And then let's shift the hip backwards, return it to neutral. So you can use your knees as a guide, one knee stacked on top of the other. And then again, you move the hip backwards and to neutral and rest. And then you draw the hip towards the shoulder. So you're pressing your underneath ribs and sideways down into the floor. And then you're relaxing them. So that should get you the movement that we're after. So it's not a twist, it's not a roll forward. You're bringing the hip up towards the shoulder. So you're shortening the top side of the body, you're lengthening the underneath side. And then you release. So the squeeze, release of the muscles, helping to reset them. And then you move the hip away, so towards the end of your mat. So here you lift your ribs and your side waist, your underneath ribs and side waist a little from the floor. And then return them to neutral. So that should move your hip down away from you. Again, so it's not a twist, it's not a shift forward or back. And you bring the hip down, and then you release and you relax. And then we thread the movements together into one smooth circle. So we'll do 2 repetitions in each direction. So you'll go forwards. Let's take the hip downwards, and then backwards, and then upwards. So here it's, the upper body's going to move a little bit, but you're leading with the hip. Your focus is on the hip. So take that again, another full circle round. And then next time you find your hip forward, you take a little pause, and then you're going to draw it upwards and backwards and downwards and forwards again, and upwards, backwards, downwards, forwards, and then relax. And on your arm alongside your body in these moments of pause, and you might want to take a cleansing breath. And then let's move the hip and the shoulder together. So we'll just do 1 repetition of each. So hand back down on the floor. So shoulder and hip roll forward. Nice and slowly. and then they return to neutral, and you relax. And then the shoulder and the hip roll backwards, and they return to neutral, and you relax. And then the shoulder and the hip move upwards. So you're pressing the underside waist down into the floor, and they return to neutral. And then the shoulder and the hip move downwards, move down together, and then they return to neutral. And then let's find a circle. So just one circle in each direction. So forwards, let's go down, let's go back, let's go up. So lead it from the shoulder and the hip, and let's go in the opposite direction. If you're flexible, try not to lead it from your belly or your low back. So you're doing it from the shoulder or the hip. So one circle in each direction, and then you rest, perhaps with the arm alongside the body. And then you come onto your back again. So we're bringing the sequence to a close. You come onto your back, and you're seeing how your shoulders and how your hips are in relationship to the floor now. Let's see if the experience is different from the very beginning when we first checked in. So midway through, you probably felt pretty imbalanced, and now hopefully there's balance and also a much more easeful relationship with the floor, hopefully. And you can just rest here for a moment. And then let's do our post check, which could also be an integration, because we're rewarding ourselves with better movement to find a deeper, stronger yoga pose. So you can roll yourself off to the side, come back up to all fours, and try your dog pose again. Just as a compare and contrast, because the brain likes to learn by contrast, and if it can see that you're actually a lot more flexible now, it's much more likely to keep hold the instruction. So you come up into your dog pose, you make your little micro adjustments, and you see how it is. You're moving your chest a little more towards your thighs, you're moving your heels a little more towards the floor, your hips a little more to the sky. And you might find that there's more length in the side body, there's more broadness across the front body, and there's just a little bit more room to maneuver in the shoulders. Shoulders can really hinder dog pose. Stiff shoulders can really hinder dog pose. So hips, shoulders, hopefully got a little more movement in it. You can perhaps come up and down a few times and really enjoy this new freedom in your shoulders. And then you can come down onto your knees and just take a few moments in a child's pose to rest and complete your sequence.